Joe, I understand, and let me start off here. I understand why you have Quinn Ewers as a top 5 quarterback in the country. I don't necessarily disagree with you completely. I don't necessarily think it's a bad pick. Let me tell you why I wouldn't put him there. He's too injury prone. And I think when I look at Ewers, I think that they had a lot of success last year without him too. Joe, they won games without him. Now, they barely were winning, but at the same time, I don't know if he's more talented than any of those 5 that I had up there, and that's why I took him out. Joe, I don't think he's better than Cam Ward. I don't think that there's a planet. There's nothing that Quinn Ewers does better than Cam Ward. Nothing. He's not more accurate. He doesn't have a better arm. He's not more mobile. I don't think he's a better decision maker. And when I look at Quinn Ewers, I got to be real. I don't understand the hype. Now, I'm not saying the kid's a bad quarterback, okay? But, Joe, the bad decision-making tagged with the injuries and the inaccuracy, specifically in the playoff game too, Joe, against a not really good secondary, right? Like, I mean, it's not like he was going up against an elite secondary in Washington. By the way, Washington locked him down twice. So I just look at Quinn and say to myself, I can't. Is he top 10? 100%. But for me, he's not better than anybody on that list. Now, his team is going to have more success, but for me, man, I cannot do it.
I couldn't disagree with you more. Look, I look at Quinn Ewers as the most physically gifted quarterback out of any of the guys that we have on this list. But because of some of the reasons that you brought up, I don't have him at number 1 or number 2. Quinn Ewers, for a reason, was one of the highest graded quarterback recruits that we've ever had. On most recruiting services have had him graded that high. On top of that, most see and project him as potentially the first overall pick in next year's draft. Now, I see what you say. I'm not bringing up the injury stuff. I don't think that the injury stuff is necessary, and we have gotten into it with one another of if injury concerns are valid for talking and rankings, and we have both been on opposite sides of this discussion. So I'm removing it. He is incredibly inconsistent on the field. And we saw that in the Sugar Bowl, where half of the game, the second half of the game, it was the version of Quinn Ewers that could win the Heisman Trophy. And the first half of the game was the dog shit bad version of Quinn Ewers, where he's not aggressive. He's not attacking the ball downfield. He's not trying to find and make plays. He's playing very passively. But that second half version is good enough for him to be the best quarterback in the country because he's got the biggest arm. He's got the most natural throwing motion. He is just when he is on and he is hot, he is the most dangerous quarterback in the country. The problem is he just doesn't do it consistently enough, which is why I placed him at number 4.
We're going to have to disagree with it. The one thing I will give him, year 1 as a starter to last year was 58-something% completion percentage last year or 2 years ago. And then last year was around 69%. For me, though, I do got to equate, and I know that you don't, and we've had this debate, so let's not really hash into it. Basically, you don't think it should really. I think it should. That's basically our argument. I think you got to factor it in. Because, Joe, quite honestly, all right, when I look at him, I look at Alabama, all right? That was the game he came out, and I think it stamped that a lot of people thought that he was good. But, Joe, how many other games did he have that he was below average or below average? Like, I look at that Oklahoma game twice. I look at okay. Joe, it's just for me, I don't think when he's on, he's the best quarterback. I still think that's Carson Beck. And he's more Beck, and a lot of these guys on here are more consistent. I mean, Joe, he threw 22 touchdown passes and 6 picks. I mean, what am I supposed to do with a guy that played 12 games and was 22-6? Now, he threw a lot of bubble screens. He did a lot. I thought Sark opened things up for him. I don't know if he is dynamic enough. And I don't know with now that Cam Ward has dudes around him, I don't know if Cam Ward's not going to be more explosive.
Cam Ward for me would be number 6. And my only thing, actually, I'm going to wait for Cam Ward. I'm going to wait to get to him in a second. To round it here with Quinn Ewers, I get this. I understand that it doesn't always show up. And again, like I'm describing him, the words I use make it sound like I have him at number 1. I have him at number 4. And the
Right.
reason why I have him that low is because I'm recognizing that his ceiling is the highest. He just doesn't hit it consistently.
He doesn't have a
barely
higher
hit.
ceiling than Carson
he's-
Beck, Joe.
Yes, he does. Carson Beck's already at is right where he's going to get. He's maybe like a little bit below the ceiling of what he's capable of getting. He's already consistently accurate. He already makes all the right decisions. His arm's not bigger than Quinn Ewers. When Quinn Ewers is on, he is far more dangerous than any guy on this list. And I would argue maybe Cam Ward is in that conversation of just being more physically dangerous and hard. God, ESPN pisses me off so goddamn much when you pull up that and you're like looking at it. They play a fucking video in the middle of you talking. Like, Jesus, every time I do a show, this show, another show, stupid playable ads.
That's why you gotta mute it at the top. That's a rookie move by you.
Look, to round out my point here, traits are all there. There are games where he's taken over, and I feel like he's
taken over.
Alabama.
He didn't take over that game.
Yes, he did. They won that game because he played his best game. That was his best performance.
That's not the reason they won the game.
Yes, it was.
Jalen Milroe was ass. That's why they won the game.
If it wasn't for some of the splash plays that he made, they wouldn't have won that game.
No, I disagree with that. By the way, just throwing that out, I'm throwing this out there. Oh, how so many forget. Jalen Milroe had 2 passing touchdowns called back, and Quinn Ewers came back and had a turnover. Remember that turnover that got reversed? And the controversial play? Yes, he did. Joe, he's not good enough to be in your top 5. And I think
yes, he is.
You look at his traits, but here's the thing for me too. You know why you ultimately, like, even if everything you said you was right, you know what would still make me skeptical about him? Joe, am I going to have him for all 15 games if it came down to it?
Okay, the first time that he got hurt was because of a late hit where he got driven into the ground by a dirty play from a player who has notoriously done shit like that. And then this past year, I mean, yes, he got banged up like a little bit and he was out for the one singular game, but like
no, he was out for 2 games.
Sorry, 2 games. I'm not super worried about his availability. He got the first season overblows it because of the circumstance of what happened. Look, all I'm saying with Quinn Ewers is that he is entering his 3rd year as a starter. And a lot of times, 3rd year starting is usually a time when guys take that next step. And if I'm banking on a guy that has all the tools to take that next step and everything for him to mentally click, and he's finally been around the program for long enough, he makes the most sense.
You're forgetting one big thing.
What?
He's going into a conference this year that he didn't play in last year. By the way, it's not like he's got a cakewalk schedule.
He still beat Alabama last year.
Joe, you know that the Alabama team that he played was not the Alabama team at the end of the year. Stop.
That version of Alabama is comparable to the middle to the back end of the SEC.
Can I tell you the truth? That was Nick Saban's worst team besides his first year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but it's still light years better than the bottom half of the SEC, and he still beat them.
I never said that they were going to lose to the back half of the SEC. But when you go up against the top dudes in this conference, Joe, let me put it like this. You can't have a sluggish day versus Kansas anymore. You can't have a sluggish day as a team versus Houston because you know who Houston now has turned into? Kentucky, LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, Texas A&M. You can't have, and I know that all of those teams are better than Houston.
Obviously.
Okay.
Obviously.
So all I'm saying is if he has lackluster performances like he did at times last year, you're going to, I have a feeling you're going to come in here and say, well, Quinn Ewers was the reason they lost the game. Well, no shit. He's playing better competition. So I get what you're saying on Alabama, even though I think you got to take that with context. So
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.